A Wolf Soulmate Romance written by Clara Nightshade. Prologue. They say weddings are meant to be the best day of a girl's life, and perhaps for most of them, it's true. What with the flowers, the beautiful dress, the champagne, and not to mention the promise of eternal love. Weddings really do aim to please, Selene supposes. Except, of course, when the wedding is your sister's and she's marrying the love of your life. In that particular case, Selene's case, well, weddings suck. Eternal love is a joke. For Selene, this wedding isn't cause for celebration but for deception, because for the entirety of the event, she will need to hide her feelings, make sure nobody finds out her shameful secret. This wedding isn't about love but heartbreak. For Selene, it isn't the beginning of a beautiful story but the end of one. She'd known Dorian first. She'd loved him first. But he had chosen her little sister, and that was that, leaving Selene with nothing but the crumbs of her unrequited love. At least that's what Selene had resigned herself to believe, that nothing hurt more than unrequited love. But fate has a way of proving us wrong, because even now, deep in the forest beyond the wedding venue, something waits for her. Something wild. Something untamed. Its eyes, cold as winter ice, will soon lock onto her, and Selene will realize that unrequited love was nothing compared to the exquisite, all-consuming danger of being wanted too much, of being claimed by a love so primal and relentless that it threatens to swallow her whole. Chapter 1. Selene, if I could have everyone's attention? Dorian asks, raising his flute. I'd like to make a toast. Conversations quiet as all eyes turn to the handsome groom-to-be. I want to thank you all for making the journey to Cedar Ridge for our wedding weekend. Dorian begins, grabbing Serafina's hand. They look perfect together, she with her cascading blonde hair, he with his chiseled jawline like something from a Barbie commercial. Selene's mother dabs at her eyes. No one but our darling Dorian ever deserved our Serafina, she whispers, loud enough for half the room to hear. To think she hasn't even heard most of Dorian's speech yet. It's about to hit every emotional note, sweet anecdotes, promises of devotion, just the right amount of humor. Selene would know, she wrote it. You know I'm crap at those things, Dorian had pleaded 3 days prior. Come on, Selene, please. She has never been able to say no to Dorian, is the thing. She hadn't said no when, fresh from moving next door at 8, he'd asked her to go biking with him, even though she hated it. Hadn't said no when, at 16, he'd called up at midnight to discuss his breakups. Nor had she said no when, at 17, he'd begged her to write his essays for him, claiming he was too busy with football. She hadn't, because she loved him since day one. She decided, with the absolute certainty of a 12-year-old heart, that she would never love anyone like she loved Dorian Ravenshade. And so she hadn't said no when Dorian had asked if she'd be okay with him dating her young sister by 15 months. The golden child who'd spent her life effortlessly collecting everything Selene ever wanted, including the love of her life. From across the room, Dorian meets her eyes and he winks. It steals Selene's breath away. To my beautiful bride-to-be, he concludes. Thank you for making all my dreams come true. I promise to spend the rest of my life making you happy. The room erupts in applause. It makes Selene feel trapped, tense. And I promise you won't ever see me cry, she thinks, squeezing her fist. After years of hoping Dorian would finally see her, really see her, it's over. He's marrying her sister in a week. Excuse me, she murmurs, setting down her empty glass. I need some air. No one notices as she slips out. Outside, the setting sun melts into the ocean, painting the sky in watercolor hues of orange and pink. At the edge of the property, the trimmed grass gives way to towering pines. Selene hesitates only briefly before stepping into the forest's quiet darkness. Her thoughts venture in circles. God, why is she like this? Still obsessing over her childhood crush about to be married to her sister, of all people. She's pathetic. Anyone else would have moved on by now. But Selene? Nope. The light dims rapidly now. Shadows stretching across the unfamiliar landscape. Time to head back, Selene thinks, realizing she's wandered farther than intended. The woods behind her stand dark and still, and after 10 minutes of walking aimlessly, Selene's heart begins to pound. The path she thought she was following has vanished, and the air grows damp and cold against the bare skin of her arms. Hello. Anyone there? She calls out. The only response is her own echo. You're fine, just fine, she mutters, choosing a random direction. Just keep walking, you'll hit the estate eventually. She trudges forward, cursing herself for not paying attention earlier in her emotional haze. But the forest feels different now. The towering pines loom higher, the undergrowth thickens. Only faint slivers of moonlight pierce the canopy, casting strange shifting patterns across the forest floor. A twig snaps. Selene freezes. She strains to listen over the pounding of her own heart. And then she hears it, footsteps, slow, measured, following. Is someone there? Her voice wavers, swallowed by the damp air. Silence. She picks up the pace, but the sensation of being watched only grows stronger. The air itself feels charged, the forest alive around her. The hairs on her arms rise. Another sound, a soft crunch of leaves, closer. She whirls around, heart slamming against her ribs. There, a shadow flickers at the corner of her vision, shifting between the trees. Too large for a rabbit. Too big for a fox. Then, a deep growl rumbles through the clearing. Selene stumbles back, fear tightening around her throat. Something moves in the bushes to her right. She's about to run. A rabbit bursts from the underbrush, darting across her path. A choked laugh escapes her. Thank God, she whispers, pressing a shaky hand to her chest. She exhales, turning. And right in front of her, silent as a ghost, eyes burning into hers, stands an impossibly large white wolf. Chapter 2. Selene. A scream rips from Selene's throat, raw and terrified. And before she can stop herself, she is curling into a protective ball, arms thrown over her face. What are you supposed to do when facing a wolf? Stand still? Run? Her heart slams against her ribs so hard it hurts. Isn't that exactly what you're not supposed to do? Show fear. Any second now, those jaws will close around her throat. Or seconds stretch into minutes. She stays frozen, lungs burning from holding her breath. Maybe if she doesn't move, the beast will lose interest. God, she's an even bigger idiot for thinking that might work. And then something cold and wet touches the back of her hand. A nose. That's a nose touching her. Her entire body goes rigid. The wolf is sniffing her now, tasting her scent. Oh God, it's probably deciding which part of her to eat first. Except then the nose retreats slightly, and so slowly, she lowers her hands enough to peek. When her eyes meet the wolf's, something shifts in her chest. The fear doesn't disappear, but it changes into something more like awe. Its fur isn't purely white up close. There are threads of silver running through it. And those eyes, my God, those eyes. Blue like glacier, impossibly knowing and alert. The longer she looks into those eyes, the foolishly certain she becomes that this creature doesn't want to hurt her. She lowers her hands completely, a shiver running through her that has nothing to do with fear. Without conscious thought, her hand reaches out, moving as if pulled by some unseen force. The wolf extends its head to meet her fingers. The contact jolts through her. Its fur isn't coarse like she'd expected. It's like running her fingers through silk. Selene strokes deeper, feeling the solid warmth of muscle beneath. A sound deeper than a growl escapes the wolf. It vibrates under her palm. You like that? She whispers, her voice strange to her own ears. The wolf's eyes drift closed. For a wild second, she wonders if it might be someone's pet. Then she takes in its size again, those unnervingly intelligent eyes, and knows better. This isn't an animal that could ever be tamed. When the wolf moves closer, presses its nose against her neck, Selene's heart leaps into her throat. But not from fear, from something new and unfamiliar that makes her skin prickle with awareness. She should be terrified. This predator's teeth are inches from her jugular. Yet she isn't. The wolf inhales deeply as her fingers continue their path through its fur. Then a tongue licks at her neck. It tickles. I'm Selene, she says, feeling simultaneously ridiculous and like it's the most natural thing in the world to introduce herself to a wolf. The wolf inclines its head in a gesture so human-like that her breath catches. I don't suppose you know the way back to the estate? She asks, not expecting a response, just filling the strange silence with words. To her complete shock, the wolf turns and takes several deliberate steps before looking back at her with what she could swear is impatience. "You want me to follow you?" she asks. Another pointed look. "I've officially lost my mind," she mutters, rising to her feet. She follows the wolf, wondering if this is some bizarre stress hallucination. But every time doubt makes her steps falter, the wolf turns and makes that same imperious head gesture. Somehow, she keeps going. After what seems both too long and not long enough, lights appear through the trees. The estate. Relief floods her system as voices drift through the darkness. "Selene. Selene, where are you?" Dorian's voice, worried and strong, carries above the others. "Here." She calls back without thinking. "I'm here." A low growl, sudden and fierce, rumbles from the wolf. When Selene turns, the creature is already retreating, its eyes fixed on something beyond her with what looks unmistakably like hostility. Before she can speak, it turns and lopes away, swallowed by darkness between one heartbeat and the next. A strange hollow feeling opens in her chest as she watches it go, like something precious has been taken from her. It makes very little sense. "Are you okay?" Dorian exclaims, grabbing her arms. "What happened?" "Your dress is destroyed." "I just got lost," she says, the truth of the wolf encounter sticking in her throat. He'd never believe her. Hell, she barely believes herself. "Well, I'm glad you're safe." His hand touches her arm. It doesn't make her skin prickle, she notes distantly. As they approach the estate, Serafina stands waiting on the back terrace, arms crossed tightly over her chest. "She's back." She calls to their parents inside before turning a cold gaze on Selene. "Look, can you not try to attract attention again? This is my wedding week." Selene gapes briefly. "I wasn't trying to," she begins. "You knew people would worry if you disappeared," Serafina interrupts. "Just try to keep it together, okay?" Selene swallows the defense rising in her throat. This week should be about Serafina. It's her wedding, after all. Hours later, freshly showered and nestled in bed, Selene rises to close her curtains against the night. A flash of white at the forest's edge catches her eye. The wolf stands at the tree line, its eyes gleaming in the darkness like twin blue stars. It holds her gaze for a long moment before turning and melting into the night like a ghost. Chapter 3. The Wolf. The wolf watches from the shadows as she disappears with the male. His prey found at last. Her scent had drawn him across his territory, sweet like wild honey but undercut with salt tears. The scent of vulnerability. When the wolf first saw her, something dark and primal shifted inside him. Hunger. This human, this female with fear scent rolling off her skin, she belonged to him. Will belong to him completely. He'd approached carefully. Humans startled easily, and he didn't want her to run. Didn't know if he could have refrained himself if she'd run. When she curled into herself, making herself small, a surge of power had flooded through him. She knew what he was, what he could do to her. He lowered himself, not submission, but calculation. A predator's patience, playing tame. He'd seen how her eyes softened then. How easily fooled she was by the gentleness he feigned. The licking, the nuzzling, all to gain trust, learn weakness, and mark his territory. The wolf paces at the tree line now, muscles coiled with tension. He'd let her go with the other male, the one whose scent offends him, intrudes on what should be his alone. Wrong. The male scent clings to her, touching what isn't his to touch. A growl builds in the wolf's chest, teeth baring at the memory. The need to follow, to track, to possess, pounds through his blood. The human believes she escaped, believes she was rescued. She doesn't understand. She was never lost to him. The forest is his domain. He allowed her to leave, for now. But he shall have her. Chapter 4. Selene. The forest envelops Selene like a living thing. Moonlight filtering through branches in silver patterns across her skin. But she feels no fear, only a strange sense of rightness. Because the white wolf is there, padding silently beside her. Then there, in a small clearing, moonlight pooling like liquid silver. And suddenly Selene is on her back, the creature's muzzle against her neck. Its tongue traces the hollow of her throat, and it sends a shiver down her spine. Her fingers find their way into the silken fur, and the wolf leans into her touch, a sound like pleasure rumbling from deep in its chest. Its presence wraps around her. Selene. A deep voice, rich and compelling, rolls through the clearing. Selene. The voice calls again, closer now. The fur beneath her fingers is gone now. Selene's palms meet warm, smooth skin stretched over hard muscle. Strong arms are encircling her waist, pulling her against a broad chest. Heart pounding, she opens her eyes to find herself staring into icy blue ones. Human eyes, with something wild flickering in their depths. Large hands grip her hair. Selene gasps and bolts upright in bed, sheets tangled around her legs, skin damp with sweat. Her heart hammers against her ribs as she presses trembling fingers to her lips. The dream had felt so real. She can almost still feel the warmth of the man's skin against her palms. She falls back against the pillows, willing her pulse to slow. But every time she closes her eyes, she sees those blue ones staring back at her, challenging, hungry, knowing. Selene tosses restlessly for a good hour, her skin burning as if with fever, until the need to escape, to feel open air, becomes overwhelming. The world outside her window is still wrapped in pre-dawn shadows when Selene slips from bed. She pulls a light jacket over her nightgown, more from habit than necessity. Her skin feels like it's on fire. Outside, the air is cool and heavy with dew, yet she isn't cold. If anything, the chill brings blessed relief. Her feet carry her across the grounds, not toward the woods but instead to the sound of crashing waves at the edge of the property, where well-tended gardens give way to wild scrub. Selene discovers stone steps cut into the cliff face. They spiral downward, leading to what appears to be a sheltered cove. The faint purple light of approaching dawn illuminates the private beach below. Movement catches her eye, a flash of white against the dark sand. The wolf stands at the water's edge, waves lapping at its paws as it gazes out to sea. It hasn't noticed her. Something about its stillness speaks of deep contemplation. Then, between one heartbeat and the next, something impossible happens. The wolf's form blurs, ripples, rearranges itself. And where the animal stood now stands a man, tall, powerfully built, and utterly naked. In the dim light, Selene blinks rapidly, certain her tired mind is playing tricks. Wolves don't become men. They don't. Yet there he is, water swirling around his ankles, the first hint of dawn outlining the planes of his back and shoulders. And Selene. Seraphina calls from behind. The man below turns sharply, and for one breathtaking second, his face is revealed in the soft dawn light. He is beautiful in a feral, untamed way that makes Selene's heart stutter painfully in her chest. High cheekbones and hollow cheeks, dark hair across his forehead nearly obscuring those piercing blue eyes, the same eyes that had haunted her dreams. A hand lands on her shoulder, making her jump. "What are you doing out here?" Seraphina asks, pulling her robe tighter. Selene turns back to the beach, but the man has vanished. The cove lies empty, save for the relentless wash of waves against the sand. I couldn't sleep," she manages. Seraphina peers around her at the hidden beach. "Oh my God, is that a private beach? Come on." She grabs Selene's hand, tugging her toward the steps. As they descend, Seraphina chatters about childhood seaside vacations. "Remember how Dad would slather us with sunscreen every hour? Well, you never needed it. You were the only one who never burned." The first rays of sun break over the horizon as they reach the sand, painting the sky in impossible shades of pink and gold. The hidden cove catches the light in a way that makes it seem enchanted. "This is it," Seraphina breathes. "This is where I need to have the ceremony." Selene barely hears her. She's drawn to the spot where the man, or wolf, had stood. The wet sand reveals nothing. Whatever footprints might have existed have been erased by the tide. Unless they were never there at all. A strange shiver runs through her. Behind her, the rising sun turns the sea to fire, and Selene could swear she hears, beneath the crash of waves, the faintest echo of a howl. Chapter 5. Selene. "I still can't believe how perfect it is," Seraphina gushes, guiding Alaric Ashbourne, her wedding planner, along the winding path back to the main estate. "The way the cliffs shelter it from the wind but not the view, it's like something from a magazine." Seraphina squeals. Selene trails behind the group, only half listening. Every few steps, she glances over her shoulder, unable to shake the sensation of being observed. The morning's impossible vision keeps replaying in her mind, the wolf transforming into a man of such breathtaking beauty it seemed almost painful. The memory of his piercing blue eyes makes her stomach flutter. I don't get why she wants to move the cocktail hour now, Dorian whispers, falling back to walk beside Selene. Everything's been set for months. He rolls his eyes dramatically. She's never satisfied, you know. Always has to change something at the last minute. When Selene doesn't immediately respond, Dorian nudges her side. You're nothing like her. Always so chill about everything. He drapes an arm across her shoulders, pulling her against his side in that familiar way that once made her heart race. Now, her heart is already racing because she feels watched. Selene scans the tree line, searching for a flash of white among the shadows. What are you looking for? Dorian asks, snapping her out of it. Nothing, Selene says hurriedly. The last thing she needs is Serafina realizing she might be going crazy. She'd take it as a personal offense that Selene dared losing her mind so close to the big day. Sorry, I'm just distracted, she says. By impossible blue eyes and a face that couldn't possibly be real, she doesn't add. Had she dreamed it all? Dorian laughs, pulling her closer. Can't have my best girl distracted. He plants a kiss on her forehead. Need you at your best for the wedding. They catch up to Lyra and Serafina at a clearing overlooking the estate. Serafina is gesturing enthusiastically toward the hidden cove. And the sunrise was absolutely breathtaking, she's saying. I bet the sunset is even more spectacular. We absolutely need to move the cocktail hour there. It would be criminal not to use that space. Lyra's expression remains neutral, but Selene notices how her gaze lingers on Dorian's arm around her shoulders. Something like puzzlement flickers across the woman's face, making Selene inexplicably self-conscious. She shifts away from Dorian slightly, though she can't articulate why. His familiar touch suddenly feels inappropriate. So, Serafina concludes with an expectant smile. Can you make this happen? Lyra grimaces. I'm afraid it won't be possible, Miss Blackwood, she says, shaking her head slowly. The budget will cover any extra expenses, Dorian interrupts, making Serafina beam at him. Budget isn't an issue for something this important. Right. Lyra bites her lip, but I'm afraid that, on such short notice, Selene can help with whatever you need. Serafina cuts in. She doesn't have much else to do this week anyway. Selene doesn't reply. The sensation of being watched intensifies, raising goosebumps along her arms. She scans the trees again, searching for what? The wolf? The man? Both? Is she losing her mind, inventing impossible creatures with impossible beauty? I feel like you're making excuses, Serafina says, her voice taking on the sharp edge Selene recognizes as approaching a tantrum. You promised me my dream wedding. Lyra looks genuinely contrite. I apologize, but while we do rent out the estate, that particular cove is off limits, she replies. But doesn't all this belong to your family? Dorian asks, gesturing broadly at the surrounding property. It does, but Lyra hesitates. But what? Serafina presses. What's the problem? Lyra sighs. Technically, the land, the estate, the beach, they all belong to my brother. I'd need his approval to set up an event on that beach. All right, cool. Let's get it then, Dorian says with the easy confidence of someone unused to hearing no. Mr. Ravenshade, Lyra begins slowly, like she is talking to a small child. My brother will never agree. What do you mean? Dorian blinks. Surely you can get him to. Neither I nor anyone can get my brother to do anything, Lyra interrupts, a note of finality in her voice. She searches for words. Head of the family. His word is law. Dorian and Serafina exchange dubious looks. Well, at least let us ask him ourselves, Dorian suggests. Perhaps we can convince him. I doubt that, Lyra mutters. What was that? Serafina asks sharply. Lyra forces a smile. You can try, she concedes. Great, let's go now, Serafina says, already turning toward the main house. He won't be free until this afternoon, Lyra says quickly. And unfortunately, we have that meeting with the caterers. Serafina groans. Selene startles at a sound behind her, a twig snapping. She turns, scanning the tree line, certain something's there. Selene could go, Dorian says suddenly, clasping her shoulders and making her jump. Go where? She asks, confused and disoriented. Serafina rolls her eyes dramatically. Haven't you been listening? You're so distracted sometimes. Are you all right? Lyra asks, studying Selene's face. You look a bit pale. I'm fine, Selene says automatically. Where am I supposed to go? She barely registers the answer, her attention caught by movement at the forest edge, a shape that looks suspiciously like a wolf. So Selene can meet with him at 3, Dorian is asking Lyra. The question hangs unanswered in the air. When Selene glances at Lyra, she finds the woman's attention fixed on the same spot in the woods, her expression suddenly alert and wary. And Selene can't help but wonder if she's seen the wolf too. She doesn't dare to ask. Chapter 6. The Wolf. The wolf paces the pristine office, claws clicking against hardwood. He shouldn't be here. Too close. Too dangerous. But the need is unbearable. Her scent calls to him, sings in his blood, strips him of reason. When she disappeared into the main house, something in him snapped. The separation ache. He circled the property twice before slipping through her partly open window. Now she is everywhere. Honey, salt, tears, something uniquely hers. He buries his muzzle in the sheets, inhaling deeply. Still warm. The pillowcase holds strands of her dark hair, the whisper of lavender. He traces where her head rested, imagines her dreams. He moves restless, drinking her in through the objects she's touched. A discarded nightgown, sleep sweat and feminine warmth. But then another scent, faint, male. The one who touched her, kissed her forehead. A snarl rises in his throat. The urge to destroy, to erase all trace of the other male, burns through him. He paces faster. She will return. And then what? Instinct demands he wait, claim her the moment she enters. A swift lunge, teeth at her throat, just enough pressure to break skin. The taste of her blood sealing their bond. She would struggle at first, they always do, but then she would yield. Her body would recognize what her human mind cannot. She belongs to him. Has always belonged to him. His jaws part, panting. The vision consumes him, her soft cries, the shift in her scent, his mark branding her as his. His entirely. His. A sound from outside, voices. Not her. He circles the room once more. He did not come for nothing. He must leave proof of his ability to provide. Clenching his offering in powerful jaws, he places it beneath her bed, hidden from the others, but where she will find it. Every instinct screams to stay. But he will return. Tonight, perhaps. Chapter 7. Selene. Later that day, Selene finds herself in Lyra's sleek black car, winding up a narrow road deeper into the woods surrounding Cedar Ridge. You're wasting your time, Lyra warns with a grimace. My brother will never agree to your sister's request. She's being a handful, then? Selene asks. A surprised laugh escapes Lyra. I've had worse. She glances at Selene. I admire your patience with her, though. That's just how our family operates, Selene sighs. Serafina's spoiled, but well-meaning. So she doesn't know you're in love with her fiancé? Lyra asks, making Selene's cheeks flame. She jerks her head toward the window, mortified that a near stranger has so easily exposed her most shameful secret. Dorian and I have been best friends since forever, she finally manages. We're like brother and sister. Lyra's skeptical glance speaks volumes. My brother does not treat me the way Dorian treats you, she observes. You don't get along? Selene asks, eager to change the subject. We get along very well, actually, Lyra says, her voice softening. He practically raised me after our father passed. I'm sorry, Selene grimaces, thinking of her beloved aunt's recent passing. Was he ill? She asks. Lyra tenses, and Selene realizes she shouldn't have asked. Something like that, the wedding planner replies, evasive. Before Selene can press further, the car turns onto a long gravel driveway. At its end stands a grand stone house that seems built to keep secrets. Ivy climbs the walls like grasping fingers, and the windows reflect the grey sky like suspicious eyes. "My brother is expecting you," Lyra says, stopping the car. "I'll come back in an hour." Inside, the house is all dark wood paneling and hushed voices as she's led by a butler through winding corridors. Selene notices other staff members pausing their work to stare at her, whispering in her wake. The butler deposits her in a waiting room with high ceilings. Rain patters against leaded glass windows, giving the atmosphere a melancholic tint. 20 minutes pass, then 30. Selene begins to wonder if her host has forgotten her entirely when the butler finally returns. "He's ready for you now, miss." He leads her to a white office at the end of a long corridor. A man sits behind an imposing desk, phone pressed to his ear, his back half turned to the door. "I don't care what the board thinks," he says. "The conservation area is non-negotiable." Selene freezes mid-step. That voice, deep and resonant. She's heard it before, in her dreams. Her gaze catches first on his hand, strong with long fingers that tap impatiently against the polished surface of the desk. Then the line of his shoulders, broad and powerful beneath an expertly tailored suit. "Your rights end at the northern boundary," he continues, irritation edging his tone. "Beyond that, the land is protected. Period." His profile comes into view as he shifts slightly. The straight nose, the uncompromising angle of his jaw. Something flutters in Selene's chest, something familiar. Without looking up, he raises a finger, signaling her to wait. Selene takes another step forward, unable to help herself. "We're done discussing this," he says. "Either honor the agreement as written, or we'll see you in court." That's when he turns just enough for her to see those eyes ice blue, piercing. Selene's lungs refuse to work, her heart stuttering in her chest. The room seems to tilt sideways, reality itself bending around the impossible truth standing before her. It's him. The man from the beach. The man who was a wolf. The man from her dreams. Here. Real. Impossibly, undeniably real. She can't move, can't tear her gaze away from his face, that beautiful, haunting face that has been imprinted on her mind since dawn. The strong cheekbones, the full lips now pressed into a serious line, the dark hair with its premature silver at the temples. "My final answer is no," the man says, words clipped. "Goodbye." He ends his call, places the phone down with deliberate care, and finally, he turns to face her fully. "Have a seat," he says, gesturing impatiently toward a chair opposite his desk. Selene waits for the spark of recognition, for some confirmation that she isn't losing her mind. But nothing. She realizes no flicker of awareness, no sign that he's ever seen her before in his life. If this is indeed the man from the beach, he clearly doesn't remember her. Alaric Ashbourne, the man introduces himself, extending his hand. Selene just keeps staring. Maybe she's mistaken. But the resemblance is striking. "And the color of his eyes, is there something on my face?" he asks when her silence stretches. Selene catches herself, mortified. "No. Sorry." When his hand wraps around hers, she feels close to tears. His skin is warm, his grip firm, and something about the simple contact makes her feel like she's just found something precious she didn't know she'd lost. What is happening? She wonders internally, her throat tight. Alaric forcefully removes his hand, a slight furrow appearing between his brows. So my sister says you have something to discuss with me regarding your upcoming wedding?" he asks. "Oh no, that's not," Selene blabbers. "I mean, it's not my wedding. My sister Serafina is getting married, not me. I'm single," she explains. Alaric frowns, looking put off. "Right," he says carefully. "So you're here on your sister's behalf?" "Yes," Selene agrees, relieved. Unbidden, images of Alaric naked by the water's edge flood her mind. "About?" he encourages, impatience edging his tone. She clears her throat. "Serafina's wedding." Focus on Serafina's wedding. "My sister discovered the beach at sunrise and absolutely fell in love with the sight," Selene attempts. She was hoping there could be a way for the cocktail party to know. Alaric interrupts with an air of finality. Selene is startled. But you don't even know what she begins. I do know, and the answer is no. Selene deflates, thinking of how disappointed Serafina will be. But more than that, she feels a desperate urge to keep him talking. Sorry, Alaric draws, his voice softening slightly at her expression. But we like to keep the beach private. No, of course, Selene nods hurriedly, her mouth working faster than her brain. For your private morning swims? Excuse me? Alaric's eyes narrow dangerously. Selene feels herself flush. This morning, she clears her throat. I kind of saw you there, at the beach. Alaric gives her a long, hardened stare. Well, if that's all, he says, eyeing the door meaningfully. I'm Selene, she blurts out, desperate for an excuse to stay in his presence. It doesn't work. All she gets is a curt nod. Pleasure, he says. Now, if you'll excuse me, Selene, I have people to call. He waves toward the door, dismissal clear in every line of his body. Selene walks out in a stunned trance. What just happened? She feels rejected somehow. It shouldn't hurt. She doesn't even know this Alaric. And yet, God, she feels like crying, and it's ridiculous. What an idiot she's being. The man couldn't have been less interested if he tried. Which, of course, he isn't. He is gorgeous in an almost surreal way. Those eyes, who has eyes like that? Selene shivers involuntarily. The wolf. The wolf had similar eyes. And it makes no sense. She's lost it, she thinks. She's completely lost it. Chapter 8. Selene. As expected, Serafina throws a fit when Selene returns with Alaric Ashbourne's refusal. She accuses Selene of not trying hard enough, of not caring about her wedding, and eventually extracts a promise that her sister will try again tomorrow. You're my maid of honor, Serafina cries, tears welling in her eyes. You're supposed to sort these things out for me. Selene agrees readily, too readily, perhaps knowing full well Alaric won't change his mind. But the prospect of seeing him again sends a wave of longing through her. Now, alone in her room, she can't focus on anything but him. When she closes her eyes, she can still feel Alaric's hand in hers, see the piercing blue of his gaze. She paces restlessly, trying to understand the overwhelming pull he exerts on her. His scent, God, his scent. Woodsy and wild, with undertones of something primal that made her mouth water. It's like she can still smell it now, here, in her room. Which is impossible. Except, Selene freezes, sniffing the air. It's here. His scent is actually here, somehow permeating her private space. She grabs her nightgown from the bed, buries her face in it, and inhales. Alaric's scent clings to the fabric. Panic rises in her chest. It can't be. She's losing her mind. Ever since encountering that wolf in the woods, something's changed inside her. A knock interrupts her spiraling thoughts. Selene, you in there? Dorian's voice carries through the door. Come in, she calls, hastily dropping the nightgown. Dorian enters, concern etched on his familiar face. You okay? You seemed pretty out of it earlier. I'm fine, she lies. Just tired. Don't worry about the beach thing, he says, leaning against the doorframe. Serafina will eventually let it go. No, she won't, Selene jokes half-heartedly. Dorian sighs heavily and drops down onto her bed, running a hand across his face. Selene tenses, inexplicably worried he'll somehow tarnish Alaric's scent, which is ridiculous, because her bed doesn't smell like Alaric. She's just crazy. Do you think I'm making a mistake? Dorian asks suddenly. His voice low. Lost in her thoughts, Selene misses the question. What? I said, do you think I should go through with it, Selene? He meets her eyes. Marry your sister. Is that what you want? The question confuses her. This isn't about what she wants at all. Why is he asking this? I can't answer that for you, Dorian, she says, frowning. He snorts softly. You always have the answer. You always know what I should do better than myself. He reaches for her hand. Selene takes it reflexively. Her skin doesn't prickle. It's just a hand holding hers, and it's a little clammy. You've been in love with her for years, Selene sighs. Whatever you're feeling right now, it's just nerves. Dorian nods. You're right. God, You're always right. He brings Selene's hand to his lips and kisses it, a familiar gesture that suddenly doesn't sit right with her. I think I'm going to go to bed, she tells him. I didn't sleep well last night. Dorian nods and apologizes for barging in, though he almost sounds offended while saying so. As he gets up, a lighter drops from his pocket. Selene notes this means he's been smoking again, and prays Serafina doesn't find out. Dorian curses, kneeling down to retrieve the lighter from under her bed. Suddenly, he snaps his hand back with a gasp. What the? He hisses. What is it? Selene asks, confused by how startled he sounds. Dorian doesn't reply. He peeks under the bed, curses again, reaches for something. What the is this, Selene? He asks, brandishing something in front of her eyes. It's a dead rabbit, its little head limp, blood dried along the clean break in its neck. Chapter 9. The Wolf. The wolf prowls the pristine office, claws clicking against hardwood. Caged. Confined. Its nostrils flare, drinking in her lingering scent, now seared into its memory. She was here. Within reach. And the human did nothing. A snarl rips from its throat. Lunges at the chair where she sat, burying its muzzle in the fabric, inhaling deeply. Her essence floods its senses, muscles trembling with need. But beneath it, something else, the unmistakable scent of desire. She wanted them. Her body betrayed her with every quickened heartbeat, every heated flush. Satisfaction swells. And yet, its human half just sat there. The wolf snaps at empty air, frustration a wildfire in its chest. How could the human ignore what was so plainly his? Why send away what belongs to him? Perhaps the human is defective. Broken. The wolf's pacing turns erratic, thoughts splintering. The human can no longer be trusted. The shift has become harder to reverse. Each time, the wolf grows stronger. Soon, it will take permanent control as it should. Its claws rake deep gouges into the desk, wood splintering under savage pressure. Its breath comes in harsh pants, eyes gleaming in the dark. At least she found the gift. The wolf had watched through the window as she discovered the rabbit, a perfect kill, a worthy offering. But then the other male had been there, touching what wasn't his. The male with the wrong scent circles too close. His hands on her. His lips against her skin. Unacceptable. This male is a problem. A problem that must be eliminated. The claiming cannot wait much longer. The separation gnaws like a wound, a hollow behind its ribs that only she can fill. Only her submission, her blood on its tongue, her body yielding beneath its weight. Soon. One way or another, the matter will be settled. And the male with the wrong scent will learn what happens to those who touch what belongs to the wolf. Chapter 10. Selene. Rain taps against Selene's windshield, a steady drumbeat as she nears Greyston Estate. Grey skies. Grey road. Grey mood. Everything suits the name of her destination. She drums her fingers against the wheel, unsettled by the rabbit she'd found outside her cottage last night. Dorian had been furious, ready to sue the estate. But the housekeeper had shrugged, blaming a cat. The staff hadn't seemed spooked, and for Serafina's sake, Selene and Dorian had let it go. But this morning, the estate manager had brought her rabbit stew instead of the pancakes she'd ordered, insisted she eat it. And she had. Every bite. The rain thickens as she reaches the gates. She gives her name, claiming she's here for Lyra. Mentioning Alaric would get her nowhere. Then drives up the winding path through the downpour. Something white flickers between the trees. The wolf, half hidden behind a massive pine. It watches her, those impossibly blue eyes sharp with eerie intelligence. You're not real, she whispers, gripping the wheel. Just a dream. A hallucination. As if answering, the wolf suddenly bounds into the road. Selene slams the brakes, jerking the wheel. Tires skid on wet gravel. The front end crunches into a tree, slamming her forward against the seatbelt. For a moment, she just sits, heart pounding. Then panic grips her. Did she hit it? She fumbles with the seatbelt, throws open the door. Hello. Wolf. Are you hurt? She calls, feeling ridiculous as if an animal could answer. Rain soaks through her blouse in seconds. She searches frantically under bushes, around trees. No white fur. No injured creature. Nothing. Shivering, she stumbles back to the car. The engine groans, then falls silent. Perfect. Cursing her heels, ridiculous things she'd worn to seem put together for Alaric, she trudges precariously up the muddy path. By the time the mansion comes into view, she's a drowned rat, hair dripping, makeup gone. A black Range Rover idles in the driveway, wipers slashing through the rain. As she approaches, the mansion door opens, and Alaric Ashbourne steps out, a staff member hurrying to hold an umbrella over him. Selene's heart stutters. Even from a distance, his presence commands, tall, imposing, flawless in a charcoal suit. Alaric, she calls, picking up her pace. Wait. He glances at her, expression unreadable. Then he turns away, as if she doesn't exist. Wait. Alaric. She runs, half-mad, soaked, chasing a man who clearly wants nothing to do with her. Somewhere in the back of her mind, she knows she looks insane. But something primal drives her forward. She needs to see him, talk to him, touch him. To her surprise, Alaric stops, turning with a faintly puzzled expression. Can I help you? His voice is polite, impatient. She falters. I'm sorry, she stammers, rain streaming down her face. I know I already asked, but my sister insists we discuss the beach again. And who are you? Alaric interrupts, his brow furrowing. The words hit like a slap. Selene, she says, gentler than he deserves. Selene Blackwood's sister. Alaric nods slowly. Recognition dawns, but not the kind she expects. From the wedding party? From yesterday? She searches his face. We met yesterday. You showed me around. There's nothing in his eyes, no recognition, no connection. Nothing to suggest he's ever seen her before in his life. So what do you want? Alaric asks, utterly unbothered. Selene, however, is very troubled. Isn't it strange that he doesn't seem to remember her at all? They'd spent nearly an hour together the day before. Perhaps it's just a tactic to get rid of her. Or maybe he meets so many people he simply forgot. The staff member who had been holding Alaric's umbrella steps forward. Alpha, he begins, before catching sight of Selene and clearing his throat. Mr. Ashbourne, he corrects. We must be off. Alaric gives her a dismissive glance. Why don't you make an appointment with my secretary? Alaric suggests, brushing her off. Or just talk it over with my sister. She handles these wedding things. He turns toward his waiting car. Wait. Selene begins, suddenly panicked at the thought of him leaving. She reaches for his arm, but her foot slides on the driveway. A sharp pain shoots through her ankle as it twists, throwing her off balance. She would have fallen face first into the mud if strong arms hadn't suddenly wrapped around her, breaking her fall. Careful, Alaric growls. His arms tighten around her, holding her effortlessly. The sound rumbles through his chest, annoyed, but his eyes, impossibly blue, are concerned. Selene weakens. She gasps, wincing as her leg gives out completely. Alaric adjusts his grip, sweeping her into his arms as if she weighs nothing. Did you hurt yourself? His breath brushes her cheek, his gaze sharp, focused only on her. Her heart hammers. Sorry, what? She squeaks. You twisted your ankle. His frown deepens as he studies her foot. His butler clears his throat. Sir, the meeting. Alaric silences him with a single shake of his head. It does kind of hurt, Selene admits, mortified. Perhaps you should have worn different shoes, he says, deadpan. He carries her inside, his warmth sinking into her frozen skin. When he finally lowers her onto a leather couch, she feels the loss of contact immediately. Alaric kneels in front of her, lifting her leg with surprising gentleness. His fingers probe the injury with expert precision. You may have fractured it, he says when she yelps as he rotates it slightly. Great, Selene scoffs, picturing the horror in Selene's eyes. My sister's going to kill me. Alaric looks confused at that, so she clarifies. A cast will look terrible in the photos, and I'm the maid of honor. His brow furrows deeper, but he doesn't comment. Instead, he rises and disappears through a doorway, returning moments later with a first aid kit and a bag of ice. He wraps the ice in a towel and places it carefully against her swollen ankle. Then he begins methodically cleaning and bandaging the area, his fingers moving with surprising skill. Each point of contact sends shivers up Selene's spine that have nothing to do with her wet clothes. "Are you a doctor in another life?" she asks, hoping to break the silence and distract herself from his touch. A brief smile crosses Alaric's lips, transforming his stern features. The sight feels like a personal victory. "No," he says simply, offering nothing else for several moments as he continues wrapping an elastic bandage around her ankle with expert precision. The silence between them isn't uncomfortable, just charged, in a way Selene can't explain. "Just useful to know these things," he concludes eventually, meeting her eyes. Selene gets lost in them, impossibly blue, like the center of a flame, rimmed with darker indigo. "I should probably get you a towel," Alaric says, breaking the connection as he looks away to wave in someone's direction. Almost instantly, a staff member appears with a plush towel. Selene barely notices, her attention still fixed on Alaric. "I'm sorry to be such a bother," she says. "But do you think I could borrow a phone? I had a slight accident a little further down your property. I need to call someone to come tow my car." Alaric agrees easily, signaling for someone to bring a landline. "What happened?" he asks, leaning against his desk. "Well, I thought I saw." Selene stops abruptly, meeting Alaric's eyes. "A what?" he encourages. His eyes are so blue she can't help but think of "I thought I saw a wolf," Selene says carefully. "A wolf?" he asks. "Are you sure?" His face remains perfectly neutral. It makes Selene feel silly. "Well, it was raining heavily," but Selene braces herself. "Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Perhaps you shouldn't have been driving in such heavy rain," Alaric states. "Yes, I get that now," she admits. "But I needed to see you. My sister Serafina, the one who's getting married, she's dead set on having her reception cocktail on the little private beach of the estate." "I see." Alaric's expression clouds over. "But your sister Lyra said we should ask you directly. Does your sister know what happened on that beach?" Alaric interrupts. Selene has no idea, but since she doesn't, she doubts Serafina does. She shakes her head. "Have her look into it," Alaric says, standing abruptly. "I doubt she'll be too eager to host anything down there once she finds out what happened." "And what did happen?" Selene asks, leaning forward despite her injury. Alaric hands her the phone, meeting her eyes one final time. "Someone died," he says gravely. And then, without another word, he turns and walks out of the room. Chapter 11. Selene. Selene isn't sure how she ended up on Alaric's leather couch. Hadn't she gone home? Hadn't she endured Serafina's lecture about responsibility? The leather is cool against her bare skin, and Alaric's lips steal her breath, her thoughts, everything that she is. His kiss is hunger made flesh, desperate, devouring. A strong hand fists in her hair. His other drags down her side, fingers digging in. He holds her exactly where he wants her, as if he fears she might escape. "Do you have any idea," he rasps, his voice rough with need, "how long I've waited for you?" His chest heaves against hers, his eyes dark and feral, his heartbeat a violent drum she can feel through her skin. She doesn't answer. Can't. He swallows her next breath. Fire licks through her veins. His hands are everywhere, gripping, consuming. How did they get here? When did they undress? The questions scatter like ashes as he trails hot, open-mouthed bruises down her throat, teeth scraping over her sensitive skin. She arches, surrendering to the sheer force of him. His scent, pine, rain, something untamed, fills her lungs, intoxicating. This is madness. Everything. And yet not enough. This is where she belongs, with him, claimed by him. The rightness of it resonates through her very bones. And tears spring to her eyes at the overwhelming perfection of this connection. "Alaric," she whispers, his name a prayer on her lips. A painful shudder runs through his frame. He pulls back, eyes searching hers, his breathing ragged and erratic. Small tremors race beneath his skin. "It's not enough," he groans, his voice cracking. His fingers dig harder into her flesh. I need more, he growls, desperation edging his words. I need all of you. Sweat beads on his forehead. Tell me, he demands, pupils blown wide with desire. Tell me who you belong to. You, she gasps. A broken gasp. A sound half groan, half snarl tears from his throat. Relief flashes across his face, quickly replaced by something wilder. His teeth graze her shoulder. Pleasure spikes. A gasp tears from her lips. Then pain, sharp, deep, wrong. Alaric. She chokes. The wolf looms over her, eyes molten gold, muzzle stained crimson. It hasn't let go, its fangs plunged deeply inside her neck. Selene tries to scream, but only a strangled whimper escapes. The wolf releases her neck, pulling back just enough for her to see its face. A low growl rumbles from its chest, hungry and unsatisfied. It lunges, jaws open wide, aiming for her throat. Selene's scream finally breaks free as she bolts upright in bed, heart thundering, sheets tangled around her legs. Chapter 12. Selene. Selene Virel was 23 when she was found dead on Greyston Estate's private beach 10 years ago. As it turns out, the information isn't hard to find if you know where to look. Selene stares at the blurry newspaper photo, her fingers trembling. The girl had been beautiful until something ripped that life away with terrifying efficiency. The article uses clinical language, but between the lines, the horror is clear: deep laceration to the throat consistent with an animal bite, body severely dismembered, remains discovered at dawn, investigation ongoing. Local legend had twisted the tragedy into something darker. The librarian's hushed voice echoes in Selene's mind. They say her bones were broken in directions bones can't naturally bend, like something was playing with her before it finished her off. Selene paces the breakfast area. Morning light stretches long shadows across the polished floor. Her ankle doesn't hurt at all, despite yesterday's apparent sprain, another impossibility in a growing list. You shouldn't be walking. Dorian stands in the doorway, irritation still etched into his face from picking her up at Greyston yesterday. It's fine, Selene says distractedly. All healed. Dorian, have you heard about what happened on that private beach? He shakes his head, stepping closer. Someone was found dead there, she presses, her voice rising. Dorian looks unconcerned, and it makes her want to shake him. Killed by a wild animal, she continues, shivering. But that's not all. The words spill out before she can stop them. She was dismembered. Bones broken in every direction. Jesus, Dorian interrupts, grimacing. Do you have to go into details before I've had my breakfast? Selene swallows. Sorry. But Dorian, if this is true, he sighs and grips her shoulders. Selene, freak accidents happen. And that's all they are, accidents. She shakes her head. No, this wasn't an accident. She knows it. Alaric hadn't thought it was either, not with the way he'd said someone died. Look, you have nothing to worry about, okay? Dorian's voice turns gentle. Whatever animal did that is long gone. You're safe. She nods, but she doesn't feel safe. Something is wrong. The dreams, the way Alaric had felt so right in her arms until he wasn't, the way she feels constantly watched. Hun. Hey, it's okay. Dorian soothes, pulling her into a hug. I'm here. Selene almost laughs. What could Dorian do against the wolf? He'd be as powerless as Selene Virel had been. What's wrong? He asks, cradling her face. You used to tell me everything. Now you barely talk to me. Dorian presses a kiss to the corner of her lips. Selene jerks back, shocked. What are you doing? Footsteps echo in the hallway. Serafina stands in the doorway, eyes sharp. Selene realizes she's still in Dorian's arms and tries to move, but he tightens his hold. My best girl is feeling under the weather, Dorian says, hugging Selene in a way that should look brotherly but doesn't. Serafina's gaze lingers on his hands at Selene's waist, but she doesn't comment. So today you get us the beach? She asks instead, catching Selene off guard. Before she can respond, a piercing scream erupts from outside. They run toward the sound, feet pounding against the marble floor. Their mother stands in the driveway, frozen in shock. At her feet lies a massive dead moose, and around its body, at least a dozen dead rabbits, forming a grotesque circle, an offering to something dark. Or a gift. Seraphina and Dorian rush to their mother, but Selene remains frozen. She knows, with absolute certainty, this is meant for her. Something unexpected unfurls in her chest. Her lips part, breath catching at the sheer magnitude of it. This is absolutely horrifying, her mother sobs. But it isn't, not to Selene. To her growing horror, she feels pleased, deeply satisfied by this display of power. She is being hunted. And something strong enough to provide for her so abundantly is watching from the trees. She feels them, those blue eyes, waiting. Thank you for listening. If this story touched your heart, give it a like and subscribe for more beautiful tales. Tap the next thumbnail to continue your journey.